Cirque du Soleil is a marvel of contemporary entertainment. Having started around 40 years ago by a group of street performers in Montreal, the company has eclipsed its more traditional circus rivals and has become a monumental global entertainment brand in the process. In this video, we'll take a close look at the tricks performed by the Cirque du Soleil to revolutionize the centuries-old circus industry. Cirque du Soleil, which is French for the Circus of the Sun, started out in the summer of 1984 by the street performer Guy Laliberté and Gilles Secra. In the early days, the company was enabled by grants from the Canadian Council for the Arts, which allowed it to put together its initial performances. Having had positive results from these performances, Cirque du Soleil began to grow quickly in the 90s and 2000s, thanks to the unique mix of entertainment they cooked up, focusing on intriguing storylines, elaborate and expensive stage production, custom-written live music, and jaw-dropping acrobatic feats at the very limits of human capability. The results were telling. Cirque du Soleil was able to grow from its humble beginnings of running just one show in Quebec in 1984 to putting on around 20 simultaneous productions around the world, having toured in over a whopping 300 cities globally. All things considered, and single-handedly drawing an incredible 5% of all the visitors in Las Vegas to its array of residential shows every night. Naturally, this has led to growing the company to around 5,000 employees, who collectively were able to generate over $1 billion in sales every year. So what makes Cirque du Soleil's business model so unique? Let's take a closer look at the company's economics together. Much has been written about Cirque du Soleil's ability to reinvent the dying live circus industry. With its repetitive focus on clowns, animal trick, fire swallowing, ball and club juggling, and other standard exploits. Instead, Cirque du Soleil completely reimagined what premier live entertainment should be about, including eliminating animal-based actors altogether and shifting the focus towards the intersection of acrobatic, Broadway-like theater performances, innovation around props and trick design, and unique and captivating bespoke storylines. Examples shows the Cirque du Soleil has produced in the past include its classic O and Mystery, which have been running at its residential hub in Las Vegas since the 1990s, as well as the retired Viva Elvis, Michael Jackson, The Immortal Tour, and others. What's interesting about Cirque du Soleil's business model is the way in which the company has been able to recreate two separate large product segments in the form of its residential and touring productions. Although both use Cirque du Soleil's unique recipe for designing contemporary circus performances, each segment lives according to its own advantages and limitations. As an example, Cirque du Soleil is able to continuously put on the same shows year after year in its residential hub in Las Vegas, because the audience represents tourists who are often only in town for a short visit and are therefore likely to have never seen the shows before. Of course, this is a great business segment for Cirque du Soleil because it only has to make the initial investment into developing and launching the show once and is able to generate continuous income from it afterwards, with only the running and maintenance expenditures to pay for. Conversely, Cirque du Soleil's touring shows, as the name suggests, travel to its customers in their home cities, from Rio de Janeiro to London, Dubai, or Melbourne. Given that the population there stays largely the same year to year, Cirque du Soleil has to bring fresh, new shows every time in order to generate sufficient interest from local audiences. The company is therefore forced to rotate shows across its global performance locations in order to continuously monetize the initial investments it had already made into designing, staffing, rehearsing, and putting on the shows previously. Another interesting fact about Cirque du Soleil's business model has to do with how it reconceptualized the idea of a target audience for a live circus performance. Previously, it was believed that the main audience for circus shows were children, with adults merely there to pay the admission fees. Cirque du Soleil was able to turn that idea completely on its head by doubling down on the elements that are of interest to adults, such as Olympic-level acrobatic performances, Broadway-like stage, costume, light and music designs, and powerful storytelling, as well as the more popular street performance and circus elements such as prop juggling and physical humor. As a result, Cirque du Soleil has been able to raise prices for its performances to premium levels, often on par with Broadway acts or premier live sports events. Furthermore, because the genre that the company has invented allows for practically endless improvisation around the main ingredients, the audience is able to consume multiple shows across locations or time, seeing a performance that is new to them individually every time they attend a new Cirque event. Being able to benefit from multiple visits per customer is incredibly important because it reduces the need to attract brand new audiences to your new or existing shows, which quickly becomes very expensive. Another marketing trick that Cirque du Soleil has made an incredible use of has to do with the idea of scarcity. As an example, in the case of touring shows, the performance is only there in your city for a limited time. What this means is that if you don't act quickly and go see the show while it runs, chances are that Cirque du Soleil will never come back for another visit to your city with the same exact production. This raises the value of performances in the eyes of the audience because it makes them more special and exclusive, and therefore stimulate buying the tickets now rather than waiting for a more opportune moment to see the show in the future. Importantly, what has allowed Cirque du Soleil to remain interesting and fresh for almost 4 decades is its approach to innovation. Knowing how critical it would be to its business model, the company has established a separate research and innovation division based in Montreal. This center is tasked with continuously coming up with the new tricks, props, and equipment, which are then inserted into new shows it designs and produces. Examples of Cirque du Soleil's innovation include the use in its performances of elements from other fields of sport and entertainment, motorbikes from the world of extreme sports, ice skating tricks, and water-based acts, just to name a few. Naturally, being able to captivate the all-important adult audience requires Cirque du Soleil to be able to put on performances, which are well above the ordinary. The company found a solution in recruiting the services of elite professional athletes who are often former Olympians in various fields of athletics. That said, when it comes to talent, Cirque du Soleil's strategy is not to rely on big recognizable names. Instead, it guarantees extremely high and sophisticated levels of performance, no matter which artists are performing on stage, through extensive training and preparation. To ensure a consistent inflow of high-quality talent to perform its shows, Cirque du Soleil runs an extremely selective and systematic recruitment process. Auditions often span multiple days, and it is common that only a handful of candidates are offered contracts, from among the hundreds who are invited to participate in the company's audition events. Many successful candidates often take multiple attempts across several years before they are able to secure a coveted spot among Cirque du Soleil's elite performer rosters. Unfortunately, live entertainment industry was among the hardest hit by the COVID-19 pandemic, and Cirque du Soleil was not an exception. The company had to lay off close to 90% of its staff after the pandemic began, lost all of its revenue for a long period of time, and was forced to file for bankruptcy protection due to its inability to service its debt obligations. Luckily, with a fresh infusion of capital from new investors, improving vaccination rates, and the gradual reopening of the economy, Cirque du Soleil was finally able to start rebuilding itself, rehiring many of its former staff and performers, and putting on a selection of residential and touring shows, starting in the middle of 2021. The story of Cirque du Soleil's business model is one of wonder, thrill, talent, and excitement, much like its live performances, which have captivated the hearts of audiences from around the world over the last 40 years. Luckily, it's looking like Cirque du Soleil will be able to fully recover from its near-death experience caused by the pandemic, and come back even stronger, hungrier, more resilient, and inspired than it ever has been before.